friends, it's Wednesday, July the 28th. Tonight, we're going to experience highlights from the Indian Summer Festival, this year's Indian Summer Festival, of course, with special guests. And I will introduce our special guests in just a moment. For those of you who don't know me, most of you do, but I'm Amy and I'm the Community Outreach Coordinator here at VocalEye, also a community member, a member of the blind community. I use she, her pronouns if you're curious. And before we get on to tonight's programming, I just want to say thank you to those folks who have made a contribution. We offer this programming free of charge, and it's all based on funds and donor participation. So if you have the capacity to make a contribution, we'll put a link in the chat. Please, there's no obligation to do so, but I just am putting that out into the universe. So thank you for those who have made contributions. And again, I haven't said this in a while, but friends, we do something different every week. And this is just yet another example of the diversity of arts that we're sharing with this community. And so, sometimes you might tune in and it might be right up your alley. And sometimes you might be exposed to something that you've never experienced before. I think there's so much value in art and exploring. And I am so excited that you all are interested in exploring with us. Quick mention of what's coming up next week, which is August the 4th, Night Passing, which is an audio play by the Arts Club Theatre Company. And the playwright Scott Button is going to join us as our special guest. And then on August 11th, which will be our last sharing before we take a couple of weeks off in the summer and come back in September. But August 11th is A Future of Memory. It's art and life after the Great East Japanese Earthquake. So we're going to have a special guest with us to share that particular event. So looking forward to those two things and hope you'll be able to join us for those. Okay, friends, let's invite our special guests because I feel like I have chatted to you long enough. So I want to invite into the space two folks from the Indian Summer Festival, Laura June Albert, who joined us last year at this time for highlights from the Indian Summer Festival. Welcome, Laura June.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited that you're here. And Laura June's brought a colleague this time, and I think it's lovely to share space with folks. And we've got Pawan Deol, who's the festival producer. Welcome, Pawan.
Thanks, Amy. So happy to be here.
Really, really happy to have the both of you here. So let's maybe just start off with who you two are. So maybe Laura June, we'll start with you because we have a little bit of a relationship with you from last week, but just introduce yourself to us and share a little bit about who you are and your connection to the festival.
Thank you. Would you like me to also introduce the festival at the same time?
I think we'll do the introductions of the two of you first, and then we'll introduce the festival.
Okay, beautiful. So thank you for having me. My name is Laura June Albert. I use she, her pronouns. This is my fifth year maybe, collaborating with Indian Summer Festival. I am located on stolen lands. My home is based in the stolen and illegally occupied territories of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish people. I've lived in Salish territory my whole life. My ancestry is from England and France. I'm a white settler, and I'm a settler both in the sense that my family came here by boat many generations ago, and also in the sense that I moved to the city of Vancouver by choice. So I'm a settler in that sense within my own generation as well. I'm a queer community organizer and an artist, and I've been working with Indian Summer Festival for 6 years now. And so, yeah, I'm really pleased to be back with VocalEye, and I'm looking forward to this evening. Thanks for your excellent hosting, Amy.
Yeah, tonight is number, I didn't say, I always say what number it is. Tonight is 53. So I've done this 53 times. And I hope I get better at it every week, but I do chat a lot. So Pawan, I'm going to leave it up to you to introduce yourself.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, my name's Pawan, and I use she, her pronouns. I'm actually in the living room of my home, which is located on the Semiahmoo First Nation, which is now colonially known as Surrey. So yeah, I'm the festival producer at Indian Summer. This is my 3rd year, so I oversee the creation of each of our festival events. So I take the ideas from the artistic team and I try to make them come to life with my team as best I can. I I've been referred to as Indian Canadian or South Asian, and I'm okay with those labels. My family is from the state of Punjab, which is in northern India. But I was born in Prince George, which is in northern British Columbia. So I'm cisgender, I'm brown, I'm a woman. I grew up in a faith-based home where my family practiced Sikhism, and that's a faith that still guides me today. And yeah, I'm just thrilled to be here and to share this incredible art with you.
Really happy to welcome you to this space as it's your first time joining us in our community. So big welcome to you. So Laura June, you just talked about introducing the festival. So I think, I obviously want to know what this year's festival is all about, but I also would like to know from either of you, but what sort of the history of the festival has been, like how did it start and who started it and all those kinds of details. So, share with us some of the history.
Yeah, I'd love to. I'll share some history and some of our maybe guiding lights, North Stars, so to speak. So Indian Summer Festival is a contemporary multi-arts festival. We're now in our 11th year. Woot woot. Every summer we offer events across multi-arts. So what that means for us is that we have literary arts, which is like writers, novelists, poets, etc. We also have sonic arts, which is mostly in the form of music. We have visual arts like galleries and installations, and we have culinary arts. So multi-arts experiences. We're not just a single art form. And everything we do is curated through a South Asian lens by our artistic director and founder, Sirish Rao. And so he aims for all of our programming as an organization to be hitting this really sweet spot between work that is super playful and like delighting, while at the same time being provocative and provoking necessary dialogue, necessary debate within our communities. And so the festival's goal is to center and amplify South Asian artists across disciplines, as I said, through these multi-arts forms in a way that addresses some kind of gap in Vancouver's cultural landscape, like in the programming and in the cultural institutions of so-called Vancouver. And the way that we do that is that we aim to break stereotypical perceptions of South Asian arts as being like traditional or as being unchanging or somehow nostalgic or old. So we present contemporary South Asian arts, contemporary South Asian voices, both local and international. And we create space in our work for critically engaging, emerging, important conversations and collaborations in Vancouver. So the way that we platform our artists is not to only speak about identity, which is so often how racialized arts get pigeonholed in so-called British Columbia, but also we welcome issues and conversations. We welcome the exploration of issues that are at intersections of multiple communities through a South Asian lens. South Asian communities are not some kind of cultural monolith. South Asian people are enormously diverse, representing, an eighth of the global population. So it's a pretty diverse crowd. And so we aim to really challenge stereotypes and get into intersections and get into important conversations that are happening through the arts. So with this, I feel like mostly what I want to say is that the festival, like you said, Amy, at the beginning of this conversation, the arts are such an important space for us to reach towards each other. The arts are transformative. There's a lot of power in the arts. And so in our case, we are using the arts to explicitly combat racism and prejudice and to build bridges and foster dialogue and community building between communities. Every year we present emerging artists, and we've also presented really established artists, many every year, including Nobel Prize winners, Booker Prize winners, Grammy and Oscar Prize winners on our stages. And so this is, I think, I don't remember, 4th or 5th year collaborating with VocalEye. And this is our 2nd year doing this format, this like sampler platter approach where we get little tasting, like a tasting platter of a whole bunch of different events within our festival. And I'm really into this approach, and I'm excited to hear your feedback as a community, as a VocalEye community in this series that you're doing. I'd love to hear your feedback afterwards if this like sampler platter approach was appealing to you. And I want to say about myself, I'm honored to be back as a guest personally, and I want to name that I'm an outsider, both to the South Asian community. I myself am a white person. I'm an outsider to the South Asian community, and I'm also an outsider to the blind and low vision community. I'm a temporarily able-bodied person and organizer, and so I take this role that I'm in tonight as a guest with a lot of care. I feel myself as an invited guest into these spaces, and I seek to hold these spaces as a bridge builder between our organizations. My intention tonight as a guest here is to speak in ways that dignify and uplift every voice and every artist that we host and every question that you have for me. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Laura June. I think it's really important for you to share all of that stuff. Pawan, anything you would like to add to the conversation about the festival, maybe your role at the festival, those kinds of things? I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, I mean, it's my third year with the festival. It's a festival and a team that's quite near and dear to my heart. I am quite often labeled as South Asian, as Indian Canadian, and so this platform is unique. As Laura June mentioned, there's not a lot of platforms for South Asian arts. And so I feel very proud of the work we do. I love production. I've spent a lot of time working in radio and television and film. And so working with this organization and creating really magical experiences and really centering South Asian artists has, it keeps me happy.
Awesome. I'm really happy to hear that. We just have a minute left before we're going to officially launch the programming. So I just want to hear a little bit about what we're going to experience tonight before we formally introduce the festival and the themes of the festival. So what is it, folks, that we're going to, experience tonight as a group, as a collective?
Thank you. This is Laura June again. So tonight we've curated a sampler platter of sorts, a sort of a tasting menu of excerpts, a number of short excerpts from different events throughout our festival. We had 10 events in the festival this year, and we've selected short 5 to 10 minute excerpts from a number of events. The festival theme this year, every single year we have a different theme to sort of maybe like synthesize the different events, because as I've mentioned, our artists are incredibly diverse. The modes are diverse, like the forms that they take, but be they visual arts or music or dialogues or writers. So we need something to sort of center what the theme is in a given year. And our theme in 2021 was shapeshifting. And shapeshifting is a theme that feels very relevant right now because of how the world is reorganizing itself. And as we all are dreaming of returning not back to what we were, but what we might become, and the world that we might rebuild in a better way, in a more sustainable way, in a more equitable way. This festival year was to explore the theme of shapeshifting, the shapeshifting that we do as people who experience and love the arts, the work that artists do, and the work that we do in all of our identities, to explore shapeshifting as a theme. So every single work that we've selected for tonight, these little excerpts are going to orbit around that theme of shapeshifting.
Awesome. I'm excited to get into the nuts and bolts of this. And have some real interesting discussion, because again, I'm also an outsider, and I love learning about art forms that are new or something that I'm experiencing sort of, I guess truly as an outsider, right? That's kind of the idea of growing and making space for other human beings and learning from each other. And that really excites me to my core. So before we share, we've got an image to share in a minute, but before we do that, the festival had a really beautiful land acknowledgement that was, really integral to what you all are doing. And we thought we'd share that with folks. So Laura June or Pawan, does one of you want to just introduce this short video, and then we'll play the land acknowledgement, because I think it's important to do that.
Yeah, thank you. This is Laura June again. So this video is just over 5 minutes long. It's an original piece that we treated as an artwork. So it was an original commissioned artwork by way of a conversation that is a territory acknowledgement and a festival welcome. The video is of a Musqueam artist whose name is Christie Lee Charles. Some of you might be familiar with her. She's the poet laureate of Vancouver. a Musqueam artist. And in the video, she's sitting out on a log out in her beautiful territories, like not in the city. She's sitting out. Behind her is marshland and rivers and the shore of an ocean that's like gently lapping up beside her. And throughout the video, there are some close-ups of like flowers and grasses and the water against the shoreline, but mostly the footage is just of her as she's speaking and telling stories.
Awesome. Thank you for the introduction of that. With that, I'll ask Rick to go ahead and play that land acknowledgement for us and introduction.
Uitzwail nasiam nasiaya anthachachlia talit an atla male. A me tip kakwilam, tachacha tamath tanawail. Tana ten tathalamat kwasana men as tatamkin cm. Tana mamana tatano smartin, kwatana mamana tatano smartin, kwatana mamana. Haitepka eaten quel hunkaminam kan, ni hai tanashquels quanitamakan. Me tap kwelach, me tap titulam atla Indian Summer Festival. Greetings, my honored and respected friends. My name is Christie Charles. My ancestral name is Skachlia, and I welcomed you here to Mali. Mali, where we are today, is the ancestral village of our Musqueam people. We've been here for over 10,000 years. Through archaeological evidence or belongings unearthed from these lands, our oral histories, and everything shows that our people have been here from the first sunrise. And I'm so thankful that my children and our future generations will be here till the last sunrise, because we are the caretakers of these waters, these lands, these oral histories, and these teachings that we get to share. So there's no word in our language for art. Everything is connected as one, Natsamat. Natsamat means to be of one. The land in which we live, the water, the air, the sun, the grass, every little thing, even down to the tiniest little slug, is of great importance to our people. As an Indigenous person growing up in this place known as Vancouver, known as Canada, to me it's known as Chachatamath, the sacred land in which our people come from. It's been very difficult coming from different generations of history. Many things have shape-shifted throughout time, and through the effects of colonization and residential school and all these different things that have happened to our people, we've become disconnected. So it's been very hard for some of our younger people especially to go back and learn our languages, learn our oral histories, because a lot of our people have either forgotten, or our elders have become ancestors, or some of that stuff just wasn't allowed to be taught to our people because of the different laws that were put upon our people. It was illegal to practice our culture for over 70 years. So a lot of things were kept underground. I'm so thankful to my family for preserving our culture and our language, for speaking our language behind the backs of people who told us that we weren't allowed or we'd be punished. Because that's why today I can speak our Hunkaminam dialect. I can say, "Ame chuch, mana ame chuch," and my children can understand that I'm saying, "Come here, child, come here." I can speak to them with pride and honor and without worry that they're so free that they can run about our sacred lands and hear our language and eat our food from the lands. It's so important to us. Every day, my family, my little family, and our Snachwath family, our canoe family, we're down here at the shore singing and training, and they go out on the canoes along these waters. And it's so beautiful and powerful to see that there's no shame. It's all pride, and it's all community connection, and it's strengthening our people. Each Indigenous community across the world, no matter who they are, where they come from, we all have special stories. We all have a language, an oral history, something that connects us to our people, to our land, to our ancestors. with the Musqueam people and some of our relatives in surrounding areas, we have similar creation stories. And for our Musqueam creation story, it is told that we were sent here from Cheels. Cheels is the great transformer in the sky, and he is the one who sent instructors and caretakers down to this earth from the heavens and the universe. He sent our people down here wrapped in clouds, and when they landed on this earth, they had different duties to take care of the waters, or to take care of the mountains, or the fish, or the birds, or each person. Like today, each being in our community has a special gift. Whether you're a storyteller, a weaver, a filmmaker, whatever it is you are, you have a special gift, and it's so important. It's so beautiful that we get to dance and sing and be a part of this virtual connection through the Indian Summer Festival this year. Thank you so much for having me a part of this festival. I can't wait to see all the presentations and hear all the stories and songs that will be a part of the festival. It's a great honor to have you here. Thank you for being at Mali today, and I wish you all the best. Haitsepka Nasiyam Nasiyaya.
That was a beautiful piece. Thank you for sharing that with us. I think both for its importance, for its artistic value, for its resonance, really a really strong piece. So thank you for sharing that. Laura June or Pawan, did either of you work with this particular artist, with Christine? Or sorry, with Christie? Did you get to meet her?
Laura June here. Yeah, we've both worked with her over the years. Christie Lee is a returning artist with our organization. She's worked with us for several years. And she's also a vastly celebrated and renowned artist in so-called Vancouver. And so in the way that both Pawan and I work with Indian Summer Festival and with other arts organizations, we've crossed paths with her in other capacities. But on that specific piece, on that short piece, Pawan, as our festival producer, produced that work. And so worked with Christie Charles directly on that piece. I don't know, Pawan, if you'd like to share anything there.
Yeah, I mean, it was a really beautiful moment to be on those lands, to be with Christie, and it was just, you know, me, a camera operator, and Christie. And so, yeah, it was quite beautiful to hear the stories and to have the sun come out. It was a really crummy day, honestly, and we were really concerned about going outside and filming and what that means, and did I need to get a tent and all this sort of stuff. And yet the sky opened up, the sun came out, and then this magic happened. So it was quite profound.
I love that. Again, I think I'll probably thank you for each piece that you share, because I think there's such gifts and what you're offering us this evening. So thank you for that just in advance. I want to bring up this image, and just before we do, we're going to introduce the image, and then I'm going to get Rick to bring it up. But it's I'll let you both speak to it, but it's my understanding is it's the icon of the festival. It's the thing that sort of brings the theme together in a visual image. So let's talk a bit about that, and then we'll bring up the image and we'll describe it to our folks. So maybe let's talk a little bit more about the idea of shapeshifting in this festival and how it's going to appear in some of these pieces, and we can remind our folks as we go along, and then we'll bring up the image. So Laura June just unmuted herself, so I think I think that means she wants to speak.
Pawan, would you like me to lead this beginning part?
Yeah, if you want to talk about the shape-shifting. Okay,
great. So yes, Amy, you're exactly right. This is our title artwork is maybe a way of thinking about what this is. A commission piece, an original artwork that was made by our feature artist, whose name is Jag Nagra, who's a local artist, visual artist, and she was our feature artist this year. And this is an original commission piece that was made for the festival around the theme of shapeshifting, and we used it as the title image of our festival program and on the title image of our website, etc. And So as I mentioned at the beginning of this event, the theme of our festival this year is shapeshifting. And this artwork is an exploration of what shapeshifting is. And Pawan will describe it, but I'm curious as I see this artwork, it makes me think of, and I think that Jag's work would name this quite explicitly, like, what does shapeshifting mean to us? How do we find ourselves in relationship to shapeshifting through the adaptations of COVID, through the art sector turning to digital events, as well as experiences of queerness? Jag Nagra is a queer artist, and as a queer person, I identify with and the types of shapeshifting that we do in the ways that we are legible or illegible in certain spaces. In some spaces we might read as queer, and in some spaces we might not. We might read as straight. There's also the shapeshifting that happens, in migratory peoples, as we morph into new cultural contexts and as our cultures meet each other. There's all of these various forms of shapeshifting that we take to adapt and change and find ourselves. And so to me, this artwork is exploring these questions.
That really resonates, even from the lens of the disability experience, where sometimes you find yourself in a place of, air quotes, passing, where you have a disability, but you can, I mean, for me, if I don't hold my white cane, you won't know that I can't see you, right? And so there are some moments where, if I'm sitting at a restaurant table and you don't know, and so I pass as a visual person as opposed to a non-visual person. So this idea of the shape shifting really resonates in a lot of ways, for myself as well. Pawan, how about for you? Anything in particular that resonates about the theme of shape shifting for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think specific to the festival, we just had to shapeshift so much as we moved through, a global pandemic, which I know we've all navigated. But it brings up a lot of challenges as we're out in the world, we're producing, we've got teams of people filming and recording and directing and editing. And so, we're amidst a pandemic, but my work required me to be out and about, in obviously a very safe way. Everything we did was according to protocols, but it definitely forced me to morph in ways that were frustrating and challenging and difficult, but that also allowed for me to grow in my role and also just as a human. The challenges are what really allow us to become more of who we are. And so I have gratitude for it now, although in festival season I was super frustrated.
Oh, I can only imagine. And I think, as we transition into what our new reality might be, and a better place for us all, I sincerely hope. I wonder if the Indian Summer Festival is going to have a hybrid approach, right? Because we've done digital stuff for a long time, but very much you were a festival of live people in live spaces. Is that something you've thought about?
Yeah, I mean, it's very true. We were quite focused on live events, and this pandemic has forced us to pivot. It's an ongoing conversation. I think as the next year unfolds, it'll be interesting to see where we go. But I definitely feel strongly that that hybridity is something we need to now embrace, and it's becoming more of the new normal, I guess, if you want to say it that way.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think without further ado, friends, we should share this image called Shapeshifter by Jag Nagra. And I know, Pawan, I think you have some description to share with us. So Rick, why don't you bring up that image for us?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so this is an illustration of a magical shape-shifting animal. You can see its whole body in full profile, and their head is facing you, so it feels like we're seeing each other. The animal has the head of a tiger adorned with jewels on the ears and on the neck, like a beautiful necklace. The body of a horse, and brilliantly colored in pinks and purples, blues and teals. Each hoofed ankle is also bejeweled in gold. And instead of a saddle, there's a patterned embroidered textile, almost like a shawl draped over their back. The tail is flowing and soft, and it's made of turquoise and pink peacock feathers. Above its shoulders are golden falcon wings, lifting proudly above its back as though it could lift into flight. As Laura June shared, this is a piece created by Jag Nagra, and it was in response to the shape-shifting theme, which we explored in our festival and which we'll continue to explore tonight. And this is what Jag has to say about the concept behind it. So these are Jag's words. What does it mean to be a shapeshifter? To morph oneself into any given persona that serves to benefit a unique purpose, taking visual cues from and paying homage to Hindu mythology. I've created a part tiger, part falcon, part horse, part peacock creature, one that can tap into its strengths, both physical and aesthetic. And yeah, it's a really beautifully pleasing, like aesthetically for me. I love how vibrant and rich the colors are. It really, yeah, it feels very bold. It just takes me to India in a way where all these little pieces remind me of my motherland.
I'm going to ask what's going to feel like an ignorant question. So my apologies in advance, maybe if it is, but because I'm not all that familiar with Indian culture, I wonder if these are colors that resonate throughout the culture, or whether these are, you know, like Western colors, or because they're really vibrant and they're really bold. So I don't know if you have any insight to be able to share some thoughts around that.
Yeah, I mean, these particular colors feel almost a bit muted and pastel-y to me, which is sort of what feels to me like this East-West fusion. The golds and the peacock feathers and the turquoises really remind me of India. India is full of color and patterns and textiles. And so for me personally, I feel like these colors don't have a specific resonance or don't relate to my personal culture in a particular way, but I definitely love how Jag has taken kind of muted pastel colors and created this magical beast.
It's interesting to me how the main body, the horse body, is kind of divided into quadrants of different colors. So it's like the hind quadrant is a shade of pink and the midsection is a darker shade, and there's legs that are blue and legs that are white. So there's this kind of patchwork effect of, I don't know, like color blocking. And I wonder if there is a deeper symbolism behind that. And if there isn't, from the artist's perspective, is there something that resonates with either of the two of you about how this is presented visually?
I could say something to that, Pawan.
Mm-hmm.
To me, I wouldn't say from my knowledge anyway, there's no like specific reference that's being made to something like culturally specific in terms of the application of specific colors in specific places. Mm-hmm. To me, what it makes me feel when I look at it is a feeling of movement. Like it looks like this is a flat image, right? A still kind of matte image. It's not shining, but to me, it looks almost like the colors are changing as I look at it, or I've maybe just caught a snapshot of it as it's constantly in a changing colored form, and that maybe it's even moving through being a horse towards the tiger, or back towards becoming a peacock. So it has this the way that the patchwork is done in the colors, to me, it evokes a sense of like ongoing transformation as opposed to this animal being fixed in its current form.
I love that. Pawan, how about for you? Anything that resonates particularly when you look at this image, something it evokes in you?
I mean, it's interesting. I see something new in the image when I experience it. I honestly hadn't even noticed, Amy, that that the animal had sort of these quadrants of color. So I think that's pretty, like the legs are definitely a different color, but it's just, there's so much to take in here. And so I feel like it reveals itself in a new way every time I look at it.
Well, that's the nice thing about having two different lenses here tonight to be our eyes to this world, which is, oftentimes, I'll just speak for myself. I won't speak for the entire community, but for myself, I really like to know how pieces like this make other folks feel. The person who's describing it to me, how that makes them feel, because otherwise I just get sort of a laundry list of details. But it's when we're looking at art that is as detailed, as intrinsic, as vibrant, as bold, as even like visually, like we would maybe call it visually cluttered or visually stimulating, so many things to look at that you can't really, pick just one, that it's nice to know how it resonates with folks, how it makes you feel. I think, what I get mostly from this, for me personally, is color. And when I experience color like this, it puts a smile on my face, and it just makes me happy in a way. And whether that relates in depth to the theme of shapeshifting or not, I still have to discover within myself. But I just love being in front of pieces of art that just right away, there's something about it that puts a smile on my face. So thanks for sharing this piece. Any last things we want to say about this piece before we introduce our next piece of artwork?
I mean, I love the regalness of this. So speaking about feelings, this really evokes a sense of strength for me, as well, like balanced with this very like feminine beauty. And so I find that like that point very interesting, like feminine beauty and strength kind of coming together in this. And so it really makes me want to, like be in my power. I feel it I just feel it come up in my heart. And so, to speak to feelings, that sort of captures what comes up for me.
Very cool. Appreciate that. Let's switch focus, friends, and talk about our next piece, which is Laydy Jams. So which one of you is introducing this? Laura June, is that you that's introducing this?
Yeah, I will.
Awesome.
Yay, I'm excited about this one. Okay, so Laydy Jams is a musical performance. This is going to be about a 6-minute long musical performance. Laydy Jams is spelled Laydy, Lady, and it's a duo of two women who are based in so-called Vancouver, unceded occupied Salish territory. And so the two artists are Missy D, who refers to herself as a femc, and Sejal Lal, who is on violin and vocals. And so in this video, Sejal and Missy D are playing music together. Missy D is Black, and she has long, bright purple hair. And Sejal is Indian, and she has dark curly hair. And Sejal is wearing bright purple lipstick, which kind of like matches Missy D's really bright purple hair. So they have this very like pop art, super colorful thing going on. They're both wearing super splashy, bright colored clothing. Sejal, as I mentioned, is playing the violin and she's singing. She has a really melodic voice, and Missy D is singing and rapping. They're also supported by 3 backup musicians. And before we watch it, I wanted to name like the location that they're in. So this is an original video that was shot and produced by Indian Summer Festival, and Pawan, who's with us here, actually directed it and shot it and produced this whole entire video. It's shot at the Simon Fraser University in Burnaby, inside a big space that's called the Academic Quadrangle, which is this really vast, grand space that's designed by the architect Arthur Erickson. The building is like really rectangular. It's made exclusively of poured concrete and glass. It has really high, multiple storied vaulted ceilings and like cascading geometric square shapes all layered on. And so the reason why I named the space is that it's interesting because COVID is the only reason I would say why it's possible to shoot a music video in that space, because normally it would be a super high traffic area. It would be like full of people going in every direction at all the time. And here, by contrast, it's completely empty except for these 5 musicians, and each of the musicians are at least 2 meters apart. So it's got this kind of little bit COVID like
when we look back, right, we're gonna recognize even in TV shows these days when actors are 6 feet apart and you're like, you just want those 2 people to hug, you know.
Exactly.
But they can't.
Exactly.
So it'll be the hallmark of the last year and a bit when we look back at stuff that's been captured on film.
Yeah, these big empty spaces. Yeah. So it's a feel good song. It's really beautiful. I'm excited to hear it.
Awesome. Pavan, anything you'd like to add, or shall we play that clip? All right, Rick, with that, I'm going to get you to play Laydy Jams.
Hi, world. Yeah, this is Missy D. I'm Sejal, and together we're Laydy Jams. For us, or for me, shapeshifting, it's sort of the merge that happens between our 2 different backgrounds, our 2 different histories, the way we kind of have a versatile sound to the music that we make, whether it's hip hop, whether it's R&B, whether it's classical music. You kind of hear the influences kind of shapeshift one another, and on top of that, the message that we bring out to the world, which is the change that we want to see.
Donne-moi 1 seconde, 2 secondes, 3 secondes. You got it going on, last pose got you looking strong. Miroir, miroir, retourne-toi sur mon doigt. Wondering qui tu es. Toi-même tu sais, aimez-moi de star, je fais ma part, oublie-moi. Aussi plus en retard, give me one more chance. Call it espérance, hope feels good, Laydy Jams, elle le chante. Count my blessings with a sourire. Me voilà, me voilà, me voilà. L'espoir est là. Me voilà, me voilà, me voilà. L'espoir est là.
Can you feel what's coming? Yes, I can feel it. A revolution for hope is coming, and my ear feels good. Can you feel what's coming? Yes, I can feel it. A revolution for hope is coming, and my ear feels good. And my ear feels good. And my ear feels good. This is for the good people on the streets, fighting for what's right every day. This is to give thanks for those who marched and raised their voices for us long before we were born. This is for a future that looks so bright, but only if we learn more compassionate ways. This is for you and for me, but when it feels like too much, just remember you're not standing alone. So I have faith, I keep my head up, cause I got good people by my side. Look how far we've come, no, I'm not giving up this fight. So I have faith, I keep my head up, cause I got good people by my side. I can see where we're going, so now I know what hope feels like. And can you feel what's coming?
Feels good.
Yes, I can feel it.
I can feel
Revelation
it.
for hope is coming.
I can feel it.
It feels good. Can you feel what's coming?
Feels good.
Yes, I can feel it.
I can feel
Revelation
it.
for hope is coming.
I can feel
My ear feels good.
Me voilà, me
And my
voilà.
ear feels good.
Me voilà, me
And my
voilà.
ear feels good. Hello, Indian Summer Festival.
Let's go.
It's good to be here.
It goes home. Feels good. Do you feel it?
Do you feel it?
Do you feel seller. Come here, we'll hit her. I be the news. You'd report, I see. Hello black, I need the dollar. The dollars give me any sound. Filling up my spirit, oh so divine. I hear the choir sing like la 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 la. I hear the choir sing like la 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 la. I feel the gospel, read the gospel. Get the doorbell. Yeah, young Dilla, young caterpillar. Let the glory fill up like the scent of vanilla. Hope smells good, I said, do you feel it? Hope smells good, I said, do you feel it? Hope smells good, I said, do you feel it? Or do you feel it? It goes home, feels good. Do you feel it? Do you feel it? It goes home, it feels good. Do you feel it? Do you feel it? I said, cover me with your hopeful wings. Feel serenity when you're holding me. It goes home, feels good. I can feel it. I can feel it. I said, a hope smells good. I said, do you feel it?
I do.
I said, a hope smells good. I said, do you feel it? People at home singing with me like, hope feels good. I said, do you feel it? Yeah. I said, a hope feels good. I said, I should introduce the band, you know what I mean? We gon' go Vinny on the guitar. I said, do you feel it? Ian on the drum. I said, do you feel it? Dave on the bass. I said, do you feel it? Laydy Jams. Hey, Sejal. Do you feel it?
I feel it.
Do you feel it?
I feel it.
You feel it?
How does that not put a smile on your face? Honestly, like my cheeks hurt just a little bit from the stretching of that. I have a question, and again, like, you know, I'm coming to this as an outsider from a very Western lens. And one of the things I think that is really beautiful about the Indian Summer Festival and the idea of the shape-shifting theme is that this for me is totally unexpected. In terms of the kind of artwork that I, air quotes, might have expected to experience from something labeled as the Indian Summer Festival, which I may have been hearing more traditional style music, but they are like taking all these different styles of music and like almost creating their own genre. So I wonder if somebody wants to speak to this idea, how it relates to shape-shifting and how it fits in with the festival.
Yeah, thanks. Such a good question. This is Laura June. Yeah, also, like, I just want to say, I feel it. I feel it. That song just makes me so happy. It's such a nice song to listen to. Oh, it just feels so good.
And we should say it's a one song out of like a longer sort of concert series that they did, right?
Yes. And we're happy to share the link to the entire concert if folks want to listen to the whole thing. It's about 20 minutes long. So if folks want that, we're happy to send that link over. Yeah, I feel so. It's a great question. How does this work fit into the Indian Summer Festival? So that makes me think of, and I want to also say, like, I really appreciate the question. It's a great question. And I'm glad you asked. I think there can be like a tendency in the so-called West in Canada to think of like art as being like kind of the neutral art as being white as like a starting point. And then like air quotes, like cultural art are like art forms that date back to some sort of like old or ancestral way of being from some part of the world that isn't Europe. And so part of what I'm speaking for Sirish here as the artistic director. I think that he'd approve of the way that I'm framing this, which is to say that when we present classical work or folkloric work, which we do in our festival, we're making also the argument that that work is also contemporary, that there's not this division of like old types of art and new types of art, but that the art that is coming out of India and coming out of young diasporic Indian artists, either overseas or locally, is contemporary and it is emerging and it is constantly redefining itself. And so as South Asian artists, like Sejal is like, she's got classical training, her voice is amazing. This is the work that she wants to make as a young emerging artist who we would argue is like absolutely deserving to be in our festival alongside the classical and or folkloric work that we present, because all of it is amplifying Indian and South Asian and necessary voices culturally. I hope that that's like a little bit insightful, and I welcome further questions and or Pawan, if you have anything you'd like to share on that, I'd welcome that too. No pressure.
Is that a signal? The Pawan just unmuted themselves. So is that a signal that you want to speak?
I mean, I guess I can share that just identifying as Indian, I think there are a lot of, stereotypical assumptions that are made, but, there's lots of folks, who create. I have friends who make music like this, and I also have friends who play classical Indian musicians or instruments. And so I think it's quite beautiful, Amy, that like you were able to see that or acknowledge that at least, because sometimes you can just like box things up and to try to make sense of it. But I think South Asian art is so vast and so diverse. And I think this really showcases, some of what the younger artists are coming up with. So.
And I think too, as we experience some of the other pieces in the highlights, we're going to see some more of that, right? Some stuff that folks, again, probably mostly Western folks, if I'm honest, but folks might go, gosh, I didn't expect that to be the content, because I, expected to hear something that, it follows the stereotype or feels like it's, very, very, very much a cultural experience. And I'm not trying to oversimplify it, but that we're not recognizing that the art forms have changed and grown and expanded, and artists are taking things and breaking all the rules, right? Like if we didn't have artists that broke the rules, God, it'd be in a very boring world. At any rate, so I really, really appreciate art like this, because for me, it's unexpected, because I too come into this with a certain assumption of what I'm going to experience. And then I go, oh, this is, not at all what I thought I was going to experience, but not in a bad way, not in a good way, just in a like beautiful way of being able to interpret what's happening. Anyways, so I very much appreciate pieces like this, and I will definitely be checking out the longer video, because Laydy Jams already has a sacred place in my heart. Anything else we want to share about Laydy Jams before we introduce the next piece?
Just that one more thing that I would share is just how I really appreciate about this piece, how they name the work of like the land defenders and the people who are fighting for social justice in both in our time and in the generations who've come before us, while also simultaneously singing such a hopeful, such an upbeat song that's so full of love. It's a really like uplifting, maybe what it makes me think of anyway, is that it's like an uplifting, like love song of appreciation and care and celebration of the work of like lifting each other up. And so, that's the world I want to live in.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. The conversations that are happening today, and many of them should have been started a long time ago. Some of them were, but also can be overwhelming in a certain sense. And so I love this idea of being able to be political, talk about, the issues in a way that's important, to acknowledge those, but then to also be like, hey, look, here's how we can all join together in these things. So I very much appreciate that as well. Okay, shall we transition, friends? Because I'm kind of excited to learn about this next piece, because again, I think once we witness it, we'll be like, what? Wait, what? So talk about what we're going to experience next here with this upcoming piece by Kamal.
Yeah, so up next we have Kamal Pandya. He is a comedian and storyteller. So in this video, he's sitting facing the camera as you would, as we all are on Zoom calls or on an interview. And the whole video is sort of a single long shot of him. And it's got sort of a textured wood wall behind him. Kamal is a trans man. He's wearing a light green button-up shirt with a white pattern and dark frame glasses. His hair is black and cropped short. He's quite dashing. When he speaks, he uses his eyebrows a lot, like very expressively, which helps him sort of switch back and forth through the characters we'll be meeting shortly. And so in this performance, he shares stories about the various forms, again, of shape-shifting, which is the theme we keep coming back to, and translating that for queer and racialized people who have to fit into these, systems and structures that weren't necessarily meant or built for them.
Right. Laura June, anything you want to add?
I'm just such a huge fan of Kamal. I just think he's so fabulous. So yeah, that's all I have to say.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's take a look at Kamal's piece and we'll come back and unpack that afterwards. Rick, play that piece by Kamal.
Hi. I have a secret to tell you. Come closer. I'm about to reveal my secret identity. My secret identity was not born of a bite from a radioactive spider or any other accident in any other chemistry lab. My secret identity is Philip Stanton. I know what you're thinking. Another name? How many names do trans queer people need? Didn't you already choose Kamal when you first came out as trans queer? Actually, my Guruji chose Kamal. When I was born in Kampala, according to my family's tradition, I was named by the constellations present at my time of birth. The idea is that this way I'd be in alignment with all forms of life in the known universe. Mummy, of course, wanted another name. I prefer Kalyani, more feminine. I'm not exactly sure how that worked out for her, but I've kept Kalyani as a link to my mother and her labor. Kamal Kalyani Pandya. Perfectly trans, queer, non-binary, South Asian, and in harmony with the constellations in the known universe. I mean, it's not Mummy's fault that Kalyani would prove a small curse in English. The British, who felt their linguistic skills and language ever so superior, couldn't quite say or spell my name. I don't know why, with such advanced grammar and spelling tools as Dick and Jane. Those oh so important names which every subject of the British Raj learned to say and spell. See Dick run. Bohu saru, I see Dick run, and I see Vikram. I mean, I came from Kampala speaking Swahili, Gujarati, Hindi, and English. And they put me in remedial reading for my non-English accent. But wait. This isn't the origin story that I'm here to tell. We are here to talk about Philip. Not the one who recently died, Her Majesty's consort, or should I say accomplice, aiding and abetting the felonious Raj, but my secret identity. Philip Stanton. And I can't take credit for that birth either. My father birthed Philip Stanton with his labor, losing everything he worked for thanks to the British. My father went from city magistrate in Kampala with his proper British law degree to an impoverished refugee living at the YMCA in Winnipeg. His proper British law degree now invalid. And it was he who showed me the mighty morphin power of Philip Stanton. Hey, idiot! Idiot, by the way, is a form of endearment from my father. Come here. Use your white voice and get me a good table at the restaurant. Make the reservation. And I would call. Hello, I'm calling to see if you might have a table for 4 at 8 p.m. You do? Lovely. The name? The name. I knew that my papa's name, selected for harmony with all life in the known universe, the name our Guruji's predecessor blessed and chose, the name Chaturaba, his mother, blessed and chose for the child for which she labored, might not be good enough. My papa would end up sitting by the toilet or kitchen, or maybe suddenly there would be no table for 4 around 8 p.m. The name, I said, is Mr. Philip Stanton. Please note that Philip is spelled with 2 L's and 2 P's at the end. Yes, it is a little unusual. Oh, thank you for paying such close attention. Stanton? Oh, yes, just as you'd expect. Papa was delighted with the tables he got. Philip Stanton and I made all of his reservations. And if you think I was about to leave Mr. Philip Stanton behind when I had to leave my family because I'm gay and trans and queer and not the person that they wanted, you'd be wrong. Philip Stanton, those sounds and syllables, not exactly in harmony with my known universe, is like Aladdin's version of abracadabra. Secret lounges, tables near vistas of windows, fireplaces, aquariums filled with all kinds of aquatic life revealed themselves for Philip Stanton. Immovable bookcases became doors to stairways, options, possibilities, drop-down menus so long you'd have to scroll and scroll and scroll. And yet, these same people are prepared to go to war when we ask for our pronouns to be used properly, our names to be spelled and pronounced with care, maybe to live with some sense of safety and dignity. As we speak, Doug Ford, interchangeable with Philip Stanton, is invoking the notwithstanding clause, ransacking our charter and rejecting protection for Muslims. Here is my proclamation, my amendment. There's no notwithstanding clause. The same people who commit genocide cannot complain about cancel culture. Canceling entire generations maybe renders one ineligible to weep over the war on Christmas or canceling Canada Day. Here's a tune from a band called the Pillage People, who are, of course, a British band. It's the Ballad of Philip Stanton with 2 L's and 2 P's. No need to stay at the YMCA. No need to stay at the YMCA. You can take what's not yours, kidnap kids from all shores, and then cry over culture wars. Honestly, Rule Britannia should not be the theme of Great Britain. It should be the theme from EastEnders. Wow, 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 wow. Have you ever seen such weeping over asked to be accountable? However, in the spirit of generosity, I will end with a Gujarati public service announcement. Don't name your kid Linda, or worse, Belinda. Mummy and Papa both laughed so hard when I introduced them to my friend Linda. Sunchenu na? Linda? And when Linda called on the phone, my mother would shout delighted, Kalyani, Kalyani, tara phone upar Linda che. If you don't know why this joke is funny, Philip Stanton can't help you here. If you want to know why it's so funny, ask a Gujarati.
I'm going to say yet another unexpected piece, talk about intersectionality of, many intersectionalities. And there's a lot to break down in this piece. Of course, I think maybe, this is an assumption, but the joke at the end may have been lost on some folks. And I wonder if one of you might be able to unpack that joke a little bit.
Yeah, I would say, so one of the things I love so much about Indian Summer Festival broadly as a curatorial platform, but also about this artist, is I actually really love the act of not translating necessarily, like not translating to people who don't understand language references. I think there's something really cheeky about it. I think there's something maybe slightly pointed, but like in a friendly and maybe intentional way about leaving something that's not for, it's not for everyone. That there's something, and I know we're bringing this joke and this event into this space and saying like, we want to present this work here. And I also wonder about what it's like for us. I'm speaking as a white person, and I know not everybody here is white, but for those of us who, for whom English is our first or only language, and for those of us in white culture, I think there can be an anticipation or an expectation that everything would be translated to our gaze. And I think it's quite powerful and like an act of like it evokes something in us when an artist says, I'm not necessarily going to translate that for you, which doesn't mean you're not invited. You are invited. You're invited to be here. You're invited to experience this artwork. And what is clear to you is yours to take, and what is not clear to you is not yours to take. And so I like that little bit of mystery. I think it's a powerful act. And I don't know the joke myself. And so, but I like not knowing. I think there's something about that I really appreciate. The experience that it gives me of not knowing is a felt experience that I like in this case.
Thank you for sharing that. My my curiosity, my willingness, my interest in other people and their experience makes me want to know what the joke is. Although I very much appreciate what you're saying, but sometimes I feel like, how can I learn from folks if nobody's willing to teach me? But there's a time and a place for everything, I suppose. Pawan, how about for you? Is there something that you just absolutely love about this piece, or not love? I suppose I'm making an assumption that everybody, that you love this piece, but I'm wondering how this piece resonates with you.
Yeah, this piece really, sticks with me. Kamal is just a heart-centered man, and I think this piece it's controversial, it's funny. I think it pushes the boundaries. I think speaking about how we see Indians or India, you heard him share around, having roots in Uganda, like in Kampala, which is in East Africa. So there's a big diasporic Indian community there. His family origin is from Gujarat, which is a state in India. And that's that joke at the end he delivers in Gujarati. And so again, you see how diverse this Indian community is. That's a language I don't speak. That's not we sometimes make assumptions around Indians in India and there being, a single language or something, but it's amazing how incredibly diverse the population and experiences are. And so that's what really kind of stood out for me in this piece as well.
I think somebody once told me, just to reference what you're talking about in terms of languages throughout India, that there are more languages in India than any other country in the world, which I don't know, does that resonate? Does that feel like it it's a truism because I've not looked it up myself. I know that there are lots of different, whether they're specific languages or dialects of languages or whatever, that there's a ton of them regionally across the country.
I'll jump in here, Pavan. Yeah, India is definitely a linguistically diverse place. I wouldn't be able to say whether it's the most linguistically diverse place in the world, but what I do know is that also this place where we live in so-called British Columbia is also an incredibly linguistically diverse place. I can't remember the actual number, but there's something like 100 languages indigenous just to this westernmost part of the country, as compared to like the Plains territories, which are less linguistically diverse due to the cultural diversity of this place ancestrally. And so, yeah, I think language diversity is something that, there's something also about that joke being made in Gujarati at the end that speaks to that, like the loss when you understand everything, what do you lose? When everything's presented only in one language, then what do we lose? The jokes that we could make, we maybe lose the act of not understanding and wondering. Is there something about that wondering that's actually an invitation towards? And I wanted to add, just reflecting on that, because I appreciate the comment that you made, Amy, about how if people won't explain, then how can we reach towards each other? And I wanted to offer that Kamal does actually leave with an invitation. He says, if you don't understand, then ask a Gujarati, as opposed to saying like, joke's on you, you're not invited. You know, there's this invitation there to like take a step and like, do you know any Gujarati people? Could you know any Gujarati people? Could that be a conversation starter? So the thought provokingness of withholding, right? The act of withholding, what does that do? There's an artistic gesture in that act.
Awesome. Thank you that's a great reminder, Laura June. I'm going to acknowledge that we have a hand from Karim. So let's just make space for Karim to come on in and ask his question or share his comment.
As Kamal said at the end of the joke, ask a Gujarati, being of the same heritage as Kamal, being born in Kampala, Uganda, and from Gujarat and Kutch, I definitely know the answer, but I'm going to honor the artist and say, lost in translation, do the research yourself, right? And hopefully Google catches up with the Gujarati translator.
Well, maybe that might be something we have to do a little bit of research in on our own. And we are all asked to do work, right? Like that is part of our journey as human beings, is to do the air quotes, the work. And the work is not simply one genre of work. There's lots of work to do and to continue. So thank you, Karim, for
if you want to ask me privately later, that might work.
You're my go-to. All right, I might hit you up on that one.
So now you can say no, one Gujarati person. I know one Gujarati person.
Lovely.
That's so incredible. Like that's so magic in this community building. Like, we don't know who's out there. And here we have a Gujarati, in the audience who, that's incredible.
The blind community is also a diverse community all in and of itself. Right. So, I appreciate the comment. So, folks, I invite any other thoughts that you have on this particular piece, on its relationship to the festival, to shapeshifting, to the intersection of this, really funny human being that's being, saying something very political, but also very heartwarming and also kind of hard to hear at times, when he says about, having to leave his family because he wasn't welcome. So there's a lot to unpack here, and I just I want to give space to honor this piece, and so I wonder if there's any other thoughts that either of you want to share about it.
Thanks. I'll go first. Laura June here. I love how Kamal, there's shots fired in this piece for sure. Like he's not holding back, it's I agree. At times it's like uncomfortable to listen to and so on point, so brutally honest.
It's importantly uncomfortable to listen to.
Importantly uncomfortable. Great distinction, Amy. Thank you. And I really love, love maybe not the right word. I really appreciate the section where he talks about putting on a fake voice, or his, maybe it's not a fake voice, but like putting on his whitest sounding voice and taking on this fake name, Philip Stanton, and then making reservations at a restaurant for his family, knowing that if he used his name, which he considers to be sacred and the most beautiful name that is imaginable, a name that came together by many people weaving together, you know, ancestral and what's the word I'm looking for? Like astronomical energies together to make his perfect name, wouldn't be good enough to get a table that wouldn't be beside the bathroom. But if he takes on a white voice and a white name and then shows up and says, yep, it's Philip with 2 L's and 2 P's, then they'll take him straight to his beautiful table. And so there's something so honest about that that is a bit uncomfortable to face, for sure. And in the way that he tells that story, I think it invites us each to recognize where we felt that way. Maybe it's in the same like racial discrimination experience that Kamal has, or maybe it's in some of our own experiences where we've experienced like power and people withholding what we have access to as a result of how they perceive us to be. So I think that searing honesty, while it's uncomfortable, there's something so inviting about it. Where do we want to claim our power for ourselves? When we witness each other claiming that truth be told about our experiences, then it gives us permission as well, right?
Pavan, how about for you?
I think in short, I'd say, yeah, it's pointed, it can feel prickly, but I feel this piece from this festival season was the one, I think, that is like this essential dialogue starter. So I am really curious around, like during the Q&A, like after this, like how folks reacted, how it honestly made them feel. Like I feel like it just is such a like it just feels so intelligent in the way the comedy balances with some of the controversial pieces. And I really feel like every time I watch this piece with someone, or I share it with someone, it just gives birth to like an incredible dialogue. And I think that that's like really foremost to what we do at Indian Summer. Like a lot of it's art, but what does it create in conversation? And this piece really nailed that for me.
Have you received any feedback from, you know, folks that have engaged in the festival about some of these pieces, whether they say things like, you know, this was unexpected for me, or I learned a lot from this, or this has prompted me to do some work, or, you know, do you get any feedback from any of the patrons that visit the website?
Yeah, we get feedback every year from like one thing that I love about Indian Summer Festival is that our audience is quite diverse, not only culturally, but also like in terms of, you know, age and gender and class and profession and education levels and geographic location, especially through digital events, but even not through digital events, like through the Lower Mainland. And so I think that work like an artist like Kamal is a necessary artist. Like him speaking from his perspective is necessary. And so I think that our audiences respond variously based on their positionality. And so yeah, the work of presenting necessary and I would like to say even like underrepresented artists it gives, like I said before, there's something about it giving permission for each of us to name what we need and to name the ways that we're not getting what we need. And so, yeah, I would say like the feedback that we get is not consistent from one voice to the next, but loving. Our festival's grown quite enormously in our short, we're only 11 years old. And we've become like a pretty significant part of Vancouver's summer cultural landscape of programming. And I think that the excellent curation is definitely why.
Art has this amazing ability to provoke conversation. in all sorts of forms, that goes in all sorts of tangents, right? And it's one of the things that I like about art, and it's one of the things that I like even more about art that's really making me like question my own assumptions, and making me want to explore some of the work, because I too am learning like everybody else who is an outsider to every experience. And I think that's, it's part of the values that we can bring in as human beings to these spaces. So I'm really happy to witness a piece like this. It really, for all of the things that it's saying, and for some of the things that it's not saying that I'm left out of, but I'm okay with it, right? It's not, it might at 4 a.m. I might wake up and go, wait, I gotta know the answer to the joke, but but I have a go-to if I need to do that. So that's great. I'm gonna try and sit with it though, in that bit of uncomfortability, if that's even a word, but I'm gonna try and sit in that and marinate in that, because I think maybe like what you said, Laura June, and what Karim sort of reinforced, was that might have been the intent of the artist kind of the whole time, to some extent. Friends, I'm curious about the next piece. So do we want to start that conversation around the, excuse me, the my screen reader is cut out on me here.
The ecstatic?
The ecstatic. Yeah, piece number 5, the ecstatic. Thank you, Laura June, for popping in there. Do we want to start talking about the ecstatic?
My pleasure. Yes.
Awesome.
Pawan, does that work for you, Pawan? Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay. Great.
What are we going to experience with this?
Okay, so this piece is it's 12 and a half minutes. It's a documentary film. This piece is it's an original documentary film that was produced by Indian Summer Festival for our 2021 festival, and Pawan is an executive producer on this film. So it's a short original film that could be redistributed through like documentary film festivals. And so it's a little bit different than like us documenting, a performance for the sake of the festival. This is a work that will have a life beyond the festival itself. And so it's a documentary about a music project called Jhalaak. And Jhalaak is a collaboration between groups of artists across the world from each other. So Ruby Singh is a local hip hop artist, and he's local to here. And then the other major part of the collaboration is a musical group called Rajasthan Josh, who are based in Rajasthan in India. And so the name of the band is Jhalaak, which means spark. It means like a spark, like a flame, spark, in Urdu, which is a language of Pakistan and India. And so they'll speak about the project in this film, but I wanted to introduce some of the voices. So there's several voices in the piece. Ruby Singh, who is the hip hop artist, the local hip hop artist, he speaks with a Canadian accent. He's of Punjabi heritage. He speaks with a Canadian accent. Sirish Rao is also featured in this documentary. He's the founder and artistic director at Indian Summer Festival, and he speaks fluent and eloquent, beautiful English with an Indian accent. And then a third voice in this film is Chugge Khan, who's a musician, and he's learning English, and he's speaking with quite a thick Rajasthani accent. So you'll hear those 3 voices moving through the film. The footage in the film goes back and forth from like recent footage that was taken during the pandemic, and then archival footage that was taken when the artists were all together. And so during the pandemic, there's pieces of them each, the 2 groups in Rajasthan and in Canada, performing separately. And there's also footage of them on Zoom calls back and forth. And you'll hear at the very beginning of the film, there's audio that doesn't sound very good for the first like 30 seconds. And that's because it's a Zoom call that's being shown in the film. And then there's also archival footage in the film, which is from when the band created their debut album in 2018 in Rajasthan. Which is in North India near the border of Pakistan. And so the footage in Rajasthan is of them recording in clay huts in the desert. Rajasthan is a desert, like a sand dunes desert. And so there's them shooting their music videos, which includes them like singing and rapping in carriages being pulled by camels. It's really colorful. There's richly embroidered textiles and really colorful turbans. There's sand dunes and lots of smiling faces. There's many children in the video, including children of the musicians, and they're very happy and proud to be singing in this production. And also there's a slide, a text slide in the middle of the film. And the text on that slide reads, from 2016 to 2019, Ruby Singh and the Khan brothers of Rajasthan Josh met multiple times in Canada and India to record their first album, Jhalaak. So that's the text that reads in the middle of the film. And so I hope that I've not over-explained it, but given us a starting point for this documentary, which is called The Ecstatic.
I think that's great. And I think, we'll experience it over these next 12 minutes. And my invitation to folks, if they have questions about the video, is after we talk a bit about it. And if there's some questions, we can unpack those at that time, if that's fair. Okay, why don't we have Rick play The Ecstatic for us? All right, that was The Ecstatic. Very interesting stuff in there. I love Suresh when he talks about kind of the art form not being like a precious clay vase that we have to worry about breaking, but that is the clay as the mold that you give from generation to generation to build and expand on. And I love that metaphor. Laura June has something she wants to add, I can tell.
No.
I love that.
I agree with you.
Yeah, it's a really beautiful piece. And I do remember you had shared with us a piece from the last year's festival that Ruby Singh was in. And I believe, I'm not going to remember the name of the band, but he was with some Indigenous throat singers, I believe.
Yeah.
Silk Silk. I knew it was going to come to me. I may not. Silk Silk.
Nice one. Yeah, exactly. Good memory. And interestingly, in this piece as well, it wasn't really talked about much in this piece or shown too heavily, but that in one of the times when the band Rajasthan Josh was invited back to perform here, and through that night that was discussed at the Orpheum concert, when Ruby Singh curated a group of local musicians to play alongside the band, he also in that instance had many Indigenous artists joining in. Ruby really, as an artist, is somebody who bridges between communities, and he's somebody who really he speaks truth to power in his work as well, and is interested in doing the work of growing his art while being in solidarity with the First Peoples of this stolen land, and recognizing that intersection between being a racialized person himself and also being a settler, and where those things need to continue to be in conversation with each other. Yeah, I think he does that work really brilliantly. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, I knew the name right away, and then and I think that's lovely. I think it's lovely that there is I guess this this connection to the last festival, almost in a way that really makes my heart really happy. It's like like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen my friend in a year, right? Like, it's kind of what it feels like for me. Because anyways, after experiencing him the first time, I was really happy to experience this and sort of more of his artwork in this part of this particular piece. Executive producer Pawan, for you, what's it like producing a piece like this, especially during pandemic times? I don't know, is there any thoughts around that whole process that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I mean, it was a lengthy process. We had a lot of conversations trying to really get to what story did we want to tell through this piece. And I, remember having conversations, really trying to get to like, what are we trying to say? And I think, yeah, I mean, it was challenging. I think we were quite lucky with the archival footage that we had. I think Ruby documents a lot of his travels very well and has made music videos and that. So that really enriched, I think, the visual aspect of this film. It's along with this piece and all the other pieces. I mean, we were so challenged that we were creating during a time where we weren't able to meet or connect or be close to each other. So what does that look like when you're filming? And what does that look like when you're setting up multiple cameras and audio gear and boom mics? And so you see the piece and it's really lovely to see. So I appreciate the questions, because like for me, I always see what happened on the back end and what it takes, you know? And so, yeah, I mean, it's a lot. It's a huge team effort. But I mean, this story is one that I think it feels very universal in the sense of like having access to a heritage that like for me being Canadian born, and I think for Ruby as well being born here, like there's this longing, there's this yearning to connect to our ancestry. And so I really feel that through this piece. And I feel this is like something that we as folks in the diaspora really, you know, struggle with. Like where do we fit in this and how can we have that connection? And I think this story is just so powerful in how it does that.
I appreciate that. I'm going to ask you to unpack diasphoria because we've used it many times in this space. Suresh used it in the video, and I'm not sure that everybody in this space knows what that refers to. So maybe you can just sort of share what that refers to.
Would you like to, Pawan, or shall I?
You can start, Laura June.
Okay, so my understanding of the word diaspora, I might not be 100% accurate about this, but my understanding is that the word originated in relationship to the Jewish community, like that's where it was first used, and that over time its meaning has changed to mean people living away from the homeland. And so I might not, don't quote me on, I think that's where the word originated, was in the Jewish community. I'm not 100% sure about that though, but now the word means, it's used for communities who are living away from their ancestral homelands. And it's interesting because I feel that the word is often used in racialized communities, meaning like, you know, Black diaspora, for example, or like, but I feel that the word is not often used in relationship to white people. The conversation about whiteness and Jewish ethnicity is a whole other conversation that is beyond the scope of our conversation tonight, quite clearly. But for people like me who come from like Christian white ancestral backgrounds, I don't feel that the word is often used in that context, but it's one that I think is a useful word for us to think of as well. Meaning like, what is it to be of a community that is living in a place that is not ancestrally the place? And what is that connection of the place, the community that you're in now, compared in relationship to that motherland community? And I think it's an important conversation, and it's one that is applicable to many, 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 many cultures as we live in this world of migratory histories of the past 500 years. So I think in this context, folks are referring to like Ruby Singh's diasporic experience as a person living in, scare quotes, like Indo-Canadian, as Pawan said, like terms can be troubling and they're reductive and oversimplified for sure. And they get used as these like broad brush strokes. And so, yeah, what does it mean to be in that relationship of living in a community here and in a community there, or being reaching towards community there?
Awesome.
That's how I would think of it. Pawan, I welcome your thoughts as well.
No, I think that's perfectly sort of, yeah, I use it very casually. But yeah, I don't know the roots of it. I don't know like, yeah, where it stems from, but I think that perfectly captures what was my intent in using it.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I think, you know, it's a word that gets used a lot in lots of conversations, and you know, if oftentimes I find, you know, I'm just putting this out into the universe, but sometimes we're in places where we're having conversations and we feel like I don't want to be the only one to ask the question. I don't want to be the only one who doesn't know the answer. Again, I'm going to go back to how do we learn from each other if we don't ask some of these questions? and understand what some of these things mean. So I just wanted to make sure everybody knew what we were talking about when that particular word was being used, as it was mentioned several times this evening.
Yes.
So,
yes. Thank you. Thank you for asking the good question.
and for friends, I know that we said at the top that we're recording this, and we are, but so that you know, this particular piece will not be able to be shared on our YouTube channel or circulated in a link past this particular event, because this is a film that's going to be, you know, entered into other festivals, right? So like there's no, they hold the license for this, we don't.
It's exclusive. This is an exclusive
Exclusive.
one-time only viewing opportunity. You were here or you missed it. You folks are the lucky ones.
They're the lucky ones, as is the next piece that we're going to share, right? Which is the final piece of our, what did you call it, Laura June?
Sampler platter.
A sampler platter.
Yeah.
So let's introduce this final piece of the evening.
Yeah, so this piece features Anoushka Shankar, and it's a musical performance that will be about 10 minutes. Anoushka Shankar is a world-renowned sitar player. She's the daughter of the classical Indian music legend, Pandit Ravi Shankar, and she's the half-sister of Norah Jones. She's nominated for, I think, like 7 or 8 Grammys. So we were lucky to have her be present or be a part of our festival this year. It was a really, it was a big thing for us. So she's sitting cross-legged in her living room on the floor, and there's it's just a one kind of wide angle showing her instrument, the sitar, but also her home behind her with all her furniture and her decorations. And she's wearing this beautiful long cotton summer dress with bright pink and orange colors. And she's got this long necklace over the front of her dress with this huge sort of silver, like disc type medallion. And her black curly hair is sitting softly around her shoulders, and you know, she looks beautiful and she's fashionable, and that also shows in her home, which is around her. She's sitting on a large patterned carpet with embroidered pillows. The room is surrounded by houseplants and handmade ceramics and carvings, and there's lots of natural light coming in through big windows, and it really feels like what Laura June had said, like an indoor garden. So her instrument is a sitar. The sitar is a massive, like, stringed instrument made of teak wood. It has a like hollow gourd base, and it's carved tuning pegs run the entire length of the neck of it. So it rests on the floor on one side of her body. And when she's playing, it almost looks like she's moving or dancing with it as a partner.
It's a beautiful description of that. Anything else we want to share before we play this musical number?
I think this piece is going to be about 10 minutes long, maybe. And it's a really peaceful, beautiful piece of music. And so, yeah, I'm looking forward to letting this just like wash over me.
All right, with that, I invite you to sit back and listen. And Rick, I'll get you to play this musical number. Piece that just puts a smile on your face. Some of the things that I observed visually, just as the camera angles would get really close into her face, is this like intense emotion. It's like you could almost see how she's feeling the music in her body, which I think is so fantastic when I see actors do that or musicians do that, or like it just embody them, the piece from the inside out. And of course, the finger work on the sitar is absolutely incredible. It's, you know, almost similar to, you know, maybe a traditional guitar player, but that neck is so much longer and so much wider, and she's got these what are seemingly dainty hands, but she's just moving through there like wildfire. So she knows this instrument inside and out, and that's really obvious, certainly in the sound and the storytelling of the music, but also in the presentation. So thank you for sharing this piece. I wonder, I'd love to turn it to the two of you about your thoughts on this piece, why you even chose this particular piece as our wrap-up piece for tonight, what that means to you sort of in terms of a closure for the sampling platter. Laura June, maybe you can speak to that a bit.
Yeah, well, I think maybe with any multiply coursed meal, it's nice to end on a note of sweetness. I love how Anoushka described this piece as being feminine, a little bit romantic, a little bit playful, that it was played specifically for the Indian Summer Festival. This was an, again, original performance for our festival this year, which, as Pawan outlined, we were incredibly lucky to get this giant to play our festival in this way. And so to end on a piece that's just so, it just makes me feel so good. Like every cell in my body like resonates with just this feeling of like, yeah, goodness that comes from her playing music. So that was why we chose it. That was why we chose it to be the closing piece of the night. We just thought that it would be like just such a nice, rich, full, elegant note to end on.
And I just want to remind folks that as we come to the portion where we're transitioning to a fuller Q&A with the audience, please, if you have questions, you have comments, Laura June at the top of this event shared with us sort of if you had thoughts around what shape-shifting meant to you in your life. We'd love to hear any thoughts that you have about how that resonates with you. So, you know what? We've got a hand already. Look at that. If that's okay, friends, I'll just ask Nancy if she's willing to unmute herself and either ask her question or share her comment. Give Nancy a moment to unmute. And while we're waiting for Nancy, I'll just acknowledge that Megan also has a hand. So Megan, we'll just wait for Nancy. And while we're waiting for Nancy to unmute, maybe,
can you hear me?
We got her. Go ahead,
my
Nancy.
God, I'm gotta get used to that. Oh, I love it. I love the music. I went to India and I felt like I was sit there relaxing when I was there 2 years ago. It sounded the exact same music when you go shopping and in the restaurant. It's just so relaxing listening to something like this. The music was beautiful. And I like the idea how the rap, I don't know what this name was, but every time I go to a concert in India, there's always someone that comes on the stage and just takes over. And, it's so nice to people to get involved and going to see all the different colors and the East Indian outfits and how they dress up. And this is my second time in India, and I only speak Punjabi, but I don't speak Hindi, but the music is awesome. You guys did a wonderful job. And I like the idea that because he can't get to India right now, but he's going to help support the people in India. And it's sad. We all want to go to India too, because I would love to go back because I got a 10-year visa. But the music was awesome. And you guys did a wonderful job. I can't wait to go to these festivals.
Thank you, Nancy. I appreciate that. Megan, why don't you unmute yourself and ask your question or share your comment?
Well, for me, that was really cool. It was like you're all of a sudden you're like I like the artwork too, but most thing I liked the music. It was like from hip hop, like about how you feeling, or and like that good feeling song, and then it goes through and it goes through to some Indian song, which was so nice. Oh my God. And I love that music. I do have that music too, actually. It's so good. And my mom actually went to India. I wouldn't be able to because I'd love to, but I have to be very careful there. And it can be really hot. And
yes,
but I
think it's quite warm.
Yeah. But I would love to go there. However, I will need help on the streets part because they're all they're not, paved, right? No, because I've been falling walk on the sidewalk and I'd fall right into a window of a house down below. Anyway, but I loved it. How? I did not know. So Ravi Shankar Anoushka was actually the daughter of Ravi Shankar, and Anoushka was born in. Was Anoushka born in the United States?
It's a good question.
I can speak here. I wanted to respond to your question, but also going back just one step around what it's like to be in India. I think that similarly to many parts of the world, like whether or not a road is paved is like dependent on where you are in the country. Like there's many paved roads in the big cities. There's big cities. And so that's, but there's many rural places and certainly I think it's the accessibility is very different than here. Of course, there's many disabled people in India, and so and blind people in India, and so I would be curious if there are blind Indian people in this community, blind and or people with sight loss in this community, if they would have anything to share about what it's like to be blind and to have sight loss in India. I'm sure it's a very different experience than here, and it has different challenges and different barriers than here. As to the question about Anoushka's birth, I'm not sure where she was born. I'm actually not sure about that. I don't know, Pawan, if you know.
She's born in London, actually. And she she split time between and this is very kind of basic knowledge, but like London and Delhi, or like India. So I think she also spends now time in the US, but her birthplace was actually in the UK.
Oh wow, cool.
Awesome. There you go, Megan, answer to the question.
All right, thank you
for sharing your questions and your thoughts. Pawan, I didn't get an opportunity to ask you about this particular piece before we took some questions and how it resonated for you in terms of, how you respond to a piece like this.
Yeah, this piece just takes me inside. Like it takes me into my very like peaceful kind of inner sanctuary. And so these very this classical, I guess you can say it's very loose, but classical Indian music really sparks this quiet in me and this like reflection, like really, like Laura June was saying, it really, like I allow it to wash over me, and it really, yeah, it helps me center, it helps me ground, it just creates such a peace within me. So through my years, I really created a kind of intimate relationship with classical Indian music. It's what I use to meditate. It's what I use when I go to bed. And I say use as though it's, a product, but I really do. It really brings me out of a place of stress and brings me into my inner sanctuary. So
that's a little bit how a piece like this resonates with you. There is a very soothing quality to the sound of the sitar. And then there were moments in this particular piece where I swear I was hearing influences of like rock and roll or pop culture. And I think that's, the diversity that Anoushka brings to her classical training, her cultural background, where she lives in the world today. All of those things kind of meld together to, that we take that clay and we keep molding it as generations go. And I just love that idea. I think that whole idea really lends itself to the theme of shape-shifting, which I think is why for me, when I think about the theme of this festival, something that really stood out to me in this particular sitar piece was all of the influences of like other musical genres that I could feel within this piece, even subtly, but that you're like, oh, that sounds a little bit like, oh, that sounds a little bit right. So you could kind of get this blend of stuff, which was kind of cool.
Oh, Amy, you're so great.
Yeah. Careful, careful, you're gonna make my ego grow. The Zoom room is not big enough for this ego. No, I'm just kidding. I just, I'm one of those people that loves interacting with art that is, I guess the only way I can say it is just like not so mainstream, not so typical, not so, that's again asking us questions, sharing with us thoughts, provoking our interests in these discussions. And that's exactly why we have this forum here, is to be able to have folks who want to engage in the discussion around this kind of art. Was there a particular piece for either of you? And I know this is an unfair question, but I'm still putting it out there, that was your favorite piece of tonight, and a specific reason why? I know it's like picking a favorite child. I know it's not fair, but I'm just curious through your lens, what it is that, out of this collection we've shared tonight, what truly resonates with your hearts and minds.
Oh, coming through with the tough questions. Oh man,
it's not fair. I nobody ever said that this was going to be fair.
Already we reduced the festival lineup into these like curated 6 to 8 minute little segments to reduce it, following with that like culinary metaphor that we've been working with, to like reduce it down to this palette of flavors was already such an act of selection. So where to go from there? I think part of what I liked about this selection that we chose was the way that shapeshifting wove as a through line through these pieces. And I am curious to hear from folks here, not to speak over Pawan. Obviously, I'd love to hear your thoughts, Pawan. But in addition to that, I would love to hear thoughts from the folks who are here about your experiences with shapeshifting, if that theme resonates with you, if there's something in the act of questioning fixed form, evolving our practices and our ways of being with each other and relating to each other. I'm so curious to hear from folks if that theme is resonant, and if so, how. Not to put pressure on people, but to answer your question, Amy, I'm not sure that I can be on this reduced list. I feel like that's as far as I've gone so far.
I knew it was unfair, and but I kind of like the controversy around the question too a little bit. Pawan, are you willing to pick one, or are you gonna say you love them all equally?
Yeah, I mean, I'm so close to these pieces, and each one, like, producing them, being there, and so I'm not meaning to be difficult, but I just honestly don't even know how to assess that for myself, because each one brings something different. And yeah, like Laura June, I'd love to hear from folks around their experience with any of these pieces, this shape-shifting artwork, the Laydy Jams, hope feels good. Can you feel it? Kamal's, Kamal's comedic piece. I mean, if there's anybody who wants to share or ask any questions whatsoever, we're really delighted to do that. But in terms of a favorite, I can't, Amy, I can't do it.
Oh, I tried to hold your feet to the fire. But that's okay. I'm gonna say, maybe it's not a favorite piece, but I'm gonna say maybe a favorite moment maybe was the moment I was introduced musically to Laydy Jams. I think right from that moment I was like, yep, I'm in. I'm totally in. I'm in. Let's go on this journey together. And that particular feeling in me, which I think was one of the reasons why it was a great choice to start the sonic experience that we went through tonight. It ignited me. It sparked. It was a spark of ignition that carried me through the whole dinner The only thing that would have been better was if I had ordered myself in Indian food and enjoyed that in this space. And so next year I may have to think about doing that. We do have a hand quickly from Sarah. I guess Sarah wants to ask or come in and say something. So
Hi, can you hear me, Amy?
I can hear you. Yes.
Hi, I just wanted to say thank you to, this is probably the VocalEye event that I wait for every year. And yeah, and I just feel like there's obviously, other than going in person, there's no better way to enjoy this. So I just wanted to say thank you. I guess I also can't choose anybody that's my favorite, but like Amy, just the harmonies from Laydy Jams, just it's incredible. And the place that you guys were able to shoot them in is also incredible. I also wanted to just say that the territorial acknowledgement from Christie Lee Charles, absolutely beautiful to be able to hear the language. I also really liked, excuse me if I'm pronouncing this wrong, but Kamal, extraordinarily funny. And yeah, just to end with Anoushka, I feel I've been spoiled tonight. So just wanted to say thank you. Yeah, and I look forward to hopefully actually being like in person next year. But yeah, thank you both for your time. This is incredible.
Thanks, Sarah, for sharing that. We did, just before the pandemic, have an in-person a VocalEye gathering at a concert that was held at the Chan Center, which I was at, which was incredible. And then we were treated to traditional music and a little bit of a sharing of I can't remember the young man's name, but he's like a 14-year-old that was like in love with playing this instrument. I just thought this is so delightful to be invited into this conversation and to learn a little bit about this. So that was really interesting for me. And I hope we get an opportunity to do that again at a time where we are meeting in person and we can engage socially in some of these spaces, because I think it's a really lovely way to engage with this kind of artwork. And friends, if you don't have any comments to make now, that's totally cool. We will circulate the email after the event and maybe prompt you about shapeshifting. And if you have thoughts that come to you about this idea that resonates or things that resonated to you about this particular festival, we'd love to be able to provide our guests with some comments. So I'll leave that with you all to marinate. But before we say officially goodnight to Laura June and Pawan, we have a draw to get to. And I would say that everybody's always excited and hanging on bated breath for that one. So we're going to bring Sarah back in. And Laura June, since you were here with us last year in this space, like same bat time, same bat channel almost, you've been through this process before, but I think, is there a word, I always say, instead of yelling stop, because that gets really boring, we're going to ask you to pick a word. And I think I might be reading your mind. I might know what you're going to say, but is there a word that you want to use as your kill word, your trigger word?
What about shapeshifting?
I knew it! Oh, 100 points for me! I knew she was going to go there. I love it. Awesome. So let's bring Sarah in. Are you with us, Sarah?
Yes,
I don't see your square.
Oh,
it doesn't matter. It's all good.
Here I am.
Sarah's going to shuffle the names, and Laura June, whenever you're ready, you're going to yell out shapeshifter.
Okay, so I wait. Sarah, you're going to start. Is that right? Okay.
Yes. So anytime you're ready.
Shapeshifting.
Let's see. Our winner is Kareem.
Kareem, you've won a raffle prize. We still have Kareem online. I think we do. Awesome. Well, congratulations.
Yay.
Yay, you won a prize.
Hey, Kareem.
Hey, yeah, and I was going to say a comment to Amy. If you get that itch to find out what that joke meant at 4 a.m., don't call me.
I promise I won't call you at 4 in the morning.
You can call me at 2 a.m., but not at 4 a.m.
Good to know. We'll connect with you, Kareem, offline to make sure that you get your raffle prize. So thanks for joining us this evening. And really, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart to the two of you for spending your time in this space, for curating this event for us, because I think having your lens curatorially to put this together has really been a fantastic way to explore the Indian Summer Festival. So thank you from the VocalEye community for you spending your time with us tonight.
I'm in such admiration of you, Amy, and of Steph and Sarah and Rick for all of the work that you've done to make this event happen. I'm honored to be back. I love working with VocalEye. I really look forward to many more collaborations between our organizations in the future. Thank you for wanting to engage with Indian Summer Festival. I hope to see many of you again in the future.
Thanks, Laura June. Pavan, if you've got any last words, I'm going to leave them with you.
Yeah, this is my first time in a space like this. I really appreciate the warmth. I appreciate the invitation. I'm just in awe at this evening. It holds a really special place in my heart. And so I wish you all a wonderful evening, and I hope that we will meet again soon.
This is how we make arts accessible, friends.